Farah Andikan was the Interroots writer, channels messages from a high galactic council called the Interroots. Through story, symbolism, and interdimensional technology, she helps others bridge the human experience with galactic consciousness. She founded two channeled platforms, incredible websites. One's called CosmicVoyageCC.com, an accelerator program and community for starseeds, lightworkers, and all stages of awakening. And the other one is inter-roots.com, which is a storytelling portal and a social media platform connecting users with the galactic teams. And her mission is to help others understand the cosmic significance of their life story.
Neil, thank you
Farah,
so much for that. Yeah, I
it's
jumped
good to
ahead of
see
the
you.
gun here.
No, no,
Likewise,
no, you're
Neil.
good. How you
Thank you so
doing?
much. I'm doing great, Neil. Sorry, I got so carried away as being an attendee, seeing all these incredible, incredible speakers that I just lost sight of the link. So I'm here. So thank you so
Perfect
much.
timing. So we're excited for what you're going to share today. Are you doing a screen share or do you
Yeah,
need
I
PowerPoint along? Yeah,
am. So
let's do
let
it.
me go ahead and I think I see present. So if I'll click that, I'll just do a screen share. So everyone will see my messy screen. Actually, let me see. Window.
And
Oh, I think I'm good. I think I can choose this
yeah, it's
specifically.
coming
And
up.
let me click screen. Perfect.
Are
Okay,
you going to
great.
be talking about archetypes today at all? The same, like kind
I
of the
am
things.
actually,
All right,
and it
cool.
was
Let's do
so
it. I
great.
love
It
that.
was your intuition, Neil, is incredible because it's Vinny's presentation was indeed the perfect segue into our
Yes.
inner child. It's going to be all about archetypes. So a lot of the content may be repetitive, but the intention, I think, as I channeled this presentation was to be integrative.
Mhm.
So it's about integrating the vessel and getting connected to some pretty core archetypes within us.
Yeah, no,
So,
I loved that conversation so much. I've already quoted you and I've
um,
referred people to that interview because we went pretty deep. You connected a lot of dots in regards to mythology and how the stars represent archetypes that are based in our mythology as well. So I'll just let you take it away from here, but I'm
oh,
excited for
thank
it.
you so much, Neil. You're just the best host. That's the reason. You're just so great to bounce off of. So I'll go ahead. Are you able to see my screen here, Neil? I'm sorry, Neil. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, yeah, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic. All right. So the title of this presentation is Remembrance of Your Story to Ascend Past the Stars. And what's in a name? And obviously, this is the Great Remembrance Conference. And I absolutely love the name since this is why we are here on Earth in our human vessels. And yesterday, Neil said that remembrance is one of his favorite words, and it's one of mine too, along with paradox. So, the main objective of why we're here is clearly that our human existence is tied to freeing ourselves from the amnesia of having forgotten who we are. And this remembrance involves the following: the need to integrate our human self with our interdimensional selves and our star families in order to ascend up through the stars and go back home. And some of us star seeds with a very strong longing to go back home might agree that we did fall hard. And our fall attests to the Japanese philosophy of kintsugi that states that when something falls, it shatters into fragments. And while it seems like it's destroyed, it can actually be made more beautiful and valuable through the process of repair and the acknowledgement of the object's past. And kintsugi is also precisely the philosophy of our own great fall from the heavens. To go back home, we must reclaim the pieces of who we are and find those pieces of ourselves from across different dimensions and the universe to rise up through our awareness. But our awareness has one dependency, since a major part of attaining that awareness is learning our life lessons, especially the ones to be learned by our human selves or our vessels. And I love how the previous presenters kept mentioning the fact that our human vessel in our bodies is just the primary mechanism for our remembrance. And so that's basically the main thread that we're going to be following through in this presentation to be able to connect to those archetypes. So, regarding that fall, we will find the common threads and pieces in stories and myths all across the world regarding our common origin for humanity. whether it be the story of Adam and Eve or wars pertaining to the galactic. Whether one looks at it from galactic history or religious belief, we can say that a fall of some sort was involved and that we all came here to Earth to learn. And when we shattered and fell onto Earth, or some might prefer, we rather say we were reborn from a mother's womb, each of us has a seed of creation or a blueprint within us, allowing us to reconnect with our interdimensional selves and star beings and go back home, with the dependency on having to learn our life lessons, of course. So, stories are also seed or blueprint, as they can be said to explain the origin of creation. We can find fractals or shards of truth in world stories. And since we can think of everything as a mirror of the divine, stories are no different in being shards of that mirror. And to quote someone, a comment from the chat yesterday, being Stephanie Bovine, I'm so sorry if I mispronounce your name. The question was, who are you with or without your story? And like religious myths that have clues regarding the blueprint of creation, within our own human vessels, we have the seeds of creation or the blueprint that helps lead us back home. So there's a pop quiz, and a lot of these questions are easy peasy lemon squeezy. But because we're going to be connecting to our inner child, and this is a general presentation, I'm going to still ask you, what are these seeds of creation within us? One, our DNA, archetypes, or both? And and it's kind of hard to juggle between the comments, so I'll take a look and see. Okay, I don't see any. Y'all can guess. I don't see any comments, but I'll just move ahead. It was number 3, bingo. Together, DNA and archetypes are our seeds of creation, since our additional strands of DNA are encoded with the life lessons and archetypes that we must uncover for our remembrance. And so, if you happen to be ready for another pop quiz, the question is, what do our DNA and archetypes together link to? 1, story, 2, technology, or 3, story and technology. And I'll go ahead in the comments and see if we have any guesses. And I may or may not be able to see them. So both, I believe. Okay, fantastic. Okay. And you know what? You're exactly right. Both. I've channeled the technology to rise past the cosmic web through the stars using the power of story. And to hear more about that, you can watch my presentation with Neil titled The Dragon Grid Earth's Guardians on YouTube. But to give you a clue, that technology is interroots.com. And this is only what's coming through my particular vessel. So while I won't go into the specifics in this presentation of that technology, I'll be able to introduce you to 2 concepts or archetypes from that presentation with Neil here, which are the archetypes of the tree of life and the magical inner child. So I'd like to go into a meditation to help explain how those archetypes can help us achieve that remembrance. And as I mentioned, this is all coming in through my own vessel, as Vinny said before, about having to trust one's soul. So my soul has, over the course of these 10 to 15 years, have channeled a lot of unique information, but every time when I speak with others and whatnot, there's always validation of what I've been channeling. And that's been serving as a really beautiful mirror and a further form of reassurance for me, as I understand that it all is an extension of me, as everything is an extension of you. So what's been corroborated to me, and what I've always been feeling anyway within myself regarding what it is I've been channeling, is information from higher self. And of course, higher self is then taking this information from our galactic families and filtering it down to me in my human vessel. And how I tend to see a higher self is in the form of an island. So if you can take 3 deep breaths with me, we're going to be going down into that visualization now. As you're breathing, like you to focus on the path of the breath that goes up through your nostrils and calms your senses. And imagine how the wind pushes ocean waves. Similarly, that's how your breath is pushing waves of consciousness to the shores of higher mind, which is represented by an island. On this island, you will see a dead tree. This tree happens to be white because of the fact that it's surrounded by a wild, howling sea of consciousness. And these waves contain salt. And it's said in your dimension that salt is deadly to trees. So, how can it be that this tree here on this island represents the tree of life? Let's do a brief visit on this island and examine this tree now, shall we? Imagine that wave crashes on the shore of the island, the wave that you just brought in here with your breath, and the splashes of droplets crash against a web, a golden spider's web. And one of those droplets falls past the roots of the tree, and it falls, and it falls, and it falls to the center of a treasure inside of this island, which happens to be inside of you. This treasure is a crystal, which represents your spiritual heart. Your spiritual heart beats because that droplet of consciousness containing the right data made it beat. And then it rises up in the sound of your soul song, and it traverses up the cells of the tree of life. And you find the tree of life slowly coming back to life. And you follow the soul song up the tree of life. And on the tree of life is a branch. And on that tree of life is a nest containing eggs. And in each of those eggs, instead of birds, there are archetypes. One of the archetypes hatches, and that archetype is your inner child. Your inner child flies. He has a cape, or she has a cape, a superhero cape, and they fly and fly around this tree of life. And they are the key for you to reclaim and remember who you are. Because they are the key to the alchemy and for you to reclaim the magic. Yes, you have the magician's archetype within you. That is true. Yet the inner child must be healed. The inner child must be seen for all those other eggs to be able to hatch and for you to be able to express all of them in their full glory. Above this tree of life are also spinning cups, and from them gold threads fall. I won't go into that here in this meditation, but those gold threads are going to be playing a very integral role for your alchemization. And if you could slowly open your eyes and become reacquainted to your surroundings, we'll better understand the significance of that gold. So, from that meditation, we connected to the tree of life and one's magical inner child. The tree of life is said to connect all of life, including all versions of you throughout every dimension. And one's magical child is such a powerful archetype that it has you seeing life in a highly integrated and magical way. So let's revisit this piece or the concept of kintsugi and further see how it is a metaphor for you as a self. You see this gold in between the cracks. This gold requires the practice of alchemy. Alchemy is the process of transforming oneself, refining one's consciousness, much like the alchemists of old sought to transmute base metals into gold. And I think this image really says it all so beautifully, in which it says in Japan, broken objects are often repaired with gold. The flaw is seen as a unique piece of the object's history, which adds to its beauty. Your healing is your story. Fix yourself with love. And one needs their inner child to heal and conduct alchemy by seeing the beauty of their lives. And you can see a picture of the inner child here where he says, "You need me." And the reason the inner child came to me in the form of a golden haired boy is that, yeah, I know it's a very common sort of image that we see. And of course, the idea of a blue eyed, golden haired child is our soul doesn't necessarily need to use that particular demographic or that particular image to represent something to us. But sometimes, the way the previous presenters explained how the soul can take on forms, I just thought were just so profound. And if you can notice here, I don't know if I can zoom in to show you, but the inner child here in this representation, on his face, he has rainbow freckles because I always imagined him having a paintbrush that he could just paint and take on any form of any child. And in this case, that would be your inner child. He can take on all colors, all different hues, all, the different genders, just different identities as he comes into your form as your inner child. And again, your healing or gold is tied to your life lessons, which is all tied to what you seek to learn across different dimensions to connect the fragments of your vessel, which represents yourself. So now this leads to the questions of how we find the fragments of ourselves across different dimensions. And while we connected to two archetypes, being the tree of life and the magical inner child within you, there are many more archetypes existing within you. And some of you may be healers who have worked with healers that do parallel life regressions or have various methods for finding issues you must resolve on different timelines. As for what I find in my channelings, interdimensional selves come to me through story characters who are at their essence representations of archetypes. These characters all have something they need to resolve through a story plot. And we all have characters within ourselves who are connected to the archetypes of our DNA blueprint. And I can actually go ahead and explain the significance of some of these characters to you. Of course, you see an interdimensional being here who's asking the question, what kind of ET am I? And I'll leave the answer to you. But here you have Lon T. Ranger, who is represented as a guide and also an explorer who's going about multi-dimensional timelines and is opening different portals and is actually talking to the user through interroots.com and trying to connect with them and getting them connected to their own archetypes within. And then you have the pirate, Captain Tom George Flynn, who represents the outlaw. And he is the one who's going across the sea of meaning. And in the sea of meaning is the concepts or data of every single mind being there throughout history, all concepts of the mind drained there. And this man here is on his search for something, particularly that treasure on Self Island, which exists within all of us. But I won't give you any spoilers. And the spider here in the center came to me as grandmother's spider, but here she comes to me as lady spider, and she's the one who's opening up all the stargates that we refer to as this cosmic web, and she's also the one who's weaving together the shared human myth. And if you're to ask and wonder about who this little guy is in the corner, well, he's no one other than Rumpelstiltskin himself. And it's very interesting to say that usually the two archetypes that do tend to be paired together in that archetypal realm are grandmother spider and Rumpelstiltskin, which is very, very interesting and strange. It's just the way sometimes the soul talks to us, and it's really tied to Vinny. I love how he mentioned Carl Jung, because Carl Jung really goes into characterizations and archetypes and the importance of myth and story, and it's very interesting how the soul can take on different languages to speak with us. And I further forgot to mention that grandmother spider here also came to me in the form of a golden orb weaver, which is also referred to as a writing spider. So this is all about finding yourself across different dimensions through characters, which are other fragments of your vessel. And the gold or life lessons you've learned through alchemy is what connects you to these fragments. Now, regarding one of the pop quizzes from earlier, where I asked, what do our DNA and archetypes together link to? And the answer was story and technology in order to rise past the stargates. Well, regarding that exact technology, again, you can learn more about that from my presentation with the one and only Neil. And to be exact, the technology is interrates.com. And the Cosmic Voyage Crash Course is where you can get plenty of freebies and the means to connect with your archetypes to find your interdimensional selves. But questions you can walk away with are the following in the meantime. And these questions are also included on a free fun sheet you can access on the Cosmic Voyage Crash Course, along with many others that you can use to conduct different layers of alchemy. And those questions that you can ask yourself in the meantime are, what is it that I need to connect interdimensionally? What makes me whole? What are the moments or elements of my life story for me to better understand? And clearly, you don't have to conceptualize this at all or intellectualize it. You can just put your hand on your heart and see what answers come to you. And I do have a whole bunch of other sorts of questions that you can use to be able to conduct alchemy. And I believe that would mark the end of my presentation. And I think that's perfect because I want to see if I know that what I'm explaining is very abstract and vague. So I want to see whether or not you all have any questions. So I'm going to stop sharing and then hop back into the comment section. Oh my God, how did I? Okay, let's see. Okay, questions, anyone? Silent crowd or comments? Maybe not. Maybe I
No,
freaked some
they'll come
people
in.
out.
It always takes a few moments.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for that. And I stepped away for a second, so I'm curious if you spoke about the connection to planetary bodies and how those stories interplay in throughout our culture as maybe a collective memory that we've all experienced that connects us to these different realms. Can you hear me
I
okay? I
didn't
think my internet just went out.
I didn't actually go into that in this particular presentation. I alluded it to the presentation where we do talk about that. But what I'm happy to do is actually mention that about the archetypes, because those particular archetypes are mapping to the constellations in the sky, which are our stargates. And as our DNA has the connection, your DNA comes with an additional connection to archetypes, obviously. It not only comes with your universal memory, but it also comes with your archetypal blueprint, essentially. So whenever you are connecting to your archetypes, what you're technically doing is you are able to ascend your consciousness past the stars. And you're connecting to your soul families, or sorry, star families there who are inhabiting those stargates or who are opening those to you. And what you're also doing is that you are having your series of life experiences and stories that, believe it or not, are connected to opening those stargates. So, what I went here in this presentation, what I was using was the metaphor of kintsugi to be able to show to you about how it is that you're conducting alchemy. Or finding the gold in your life as a human, in your human experience and in your human vessel, to be able to piece together those fragments of you across those interdimensional timelines. And so similarly, if we're to take that metaphor and then bring it into the context of the technology and ascending past the stargates, that's exactly what that is about. It's about using and reflecting on your life lessons and your life stories, because life stories were a continuous thread that came up in this throughout this entire conference. And it is that mechanism which allows you to be able to integrate as a whole in your human body, or the experiences that you've lived and endured through in your human body, to be able to use your consciousness to be able to ascend.
It's a
Okay.
good question here. Craig is, can you want me to read that or you got it? Can you
Yeah.
see
Do we
that?
all have every archetype, or does each person have to figure out which ones we need to work on? We all have it, Craig, but I do believe it is up to you to figure out which ones you need to work on. I have a mechanism or a method for being able to do that. And sometimes it's about, I know that there are lots of different quizzes out there that are about how it is that, like, what's your primary archetype and whatnot. And I do believe that those do have some significance, but I think that whatever it is sometimes that you feel gravitated to is what your star families want you to figure out. Meaning you can actually look at particular life experiences. Like, I saw some comments earlier in the chat where people were mentioning things related to no longer identifying with the victim archetype. That's a very, very powerful realization, for example. But if you're able to go through a series or a list of different archetypes, you can see what patterns or they represent to you in terms of their energy containers, and see which ones are that you gravitate towards, Craig. And I do this in the form of story medicine on the through the Cosmic Voyage Crash Course and Inner Roots. So I don't know if that answers your question. So if you could kindly confirm or tell me if you need a little more explanation on that. I'm sorry,
I
Neil, were
like
you
that.
saying something where I cut you off?
No, no, not at all. I like that answer. Let's see if Craig needs some more into that, but I have one here for you.
Sure.
So, Inner Roots is described as interdimensional technology and a storytelling portal. So, can you explain how this platform works on a symbolic and energetic level to activate galactic remembrance?
Absolutely. So, what is happening is that you, in your individual life, you're living through your life as a human as a human, right? And we all come to these sorts of platforms to be able to glean on that remembrance, because we have had certain episodes that trigger that remembrance in us, or certain things in our external realities reflecting back to us that we are not of this world. But I think that what oftentimes does happen is that some of us go through a particular disintegration where it comes to be a little difficult to be able to pair together the two realities within ourselves. So as we're navigating the 3D reality, we don't quite we can't always pinpoint, we either have to feel like we have to go into the shadows where we live through, our and acknowledge our intergalactic identity, or we go into spiritual communities. But really, we can go ahead and carry on in our daily lives with the remembrance of our intergalactic identity, paired with our human identity, which acts as the device to receive that remembrance from our star beings, right, or our star families. And so that particular technology, Neil, what it does is it is using intersecting story threads containing archetypes to be able to have a user undergo a scavenger hunt filled with clues. And there was a particular book on alchemy, one of the original texts on alchemy, by Michael Mayer. That was actually it. He channeled it in the form of a of a multimedia book from the Middle Ages. And that's how Interroots came to me. It came to me in the form of a game that we have to go ahead and discover and crack to be able to get in touch with our archetypes and to be able to understand that we are a device and to be able to understand that the archetypes within us are receptors. And when we are getting connected to those receptors, what that is doing is it's activating that remembrance in our DNA, and it's realigning the neurons, because here it's a very physical and 3D um, uh, mechanism, because every time your synapses, they are creating different pathways, right? Every time you learn something, there are neuronal connections occurring. So by the data that I believe is channel data, right, or some might say pure source data, as that is coming through and you're reading and you're cracking the clues there in those channelings, your brain is getting rewired and activated, and you're, according to the DNA blueprint within yourself, as you're being reacquainted with the archetypes in these stories, if that makes any sense. Oh, got to do the inner work now. Thanks. Okay, so sorry, Neil. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it definitely answers the questions. And James is saying, how can we discover a dormant archetype through your platform?
Oh, that's a really wonderful question. You can discover the dominant archetype through the platform through star charts, actually. The star charts are an artifact that we refer to as a collectible that you unlock. And the star charts are actually tied to events and human are the events that we live through in our human experience, and people, events, life lessons, etc. And so basically we are looking up at a myth, our own human myth, through our star charts. And that's exactly how the ancients used to look at the night sky to be able to navigate Terra, right? And to be able to navigate Earth. Why are all those monuments created in alignment with astronomy? Well, clearly it is due to our intergalactic connections, but there is a very powerful story at play. And that's how the ancients would be able to find the patterns in the sky to be able to navigate Earth, if that makes any sense, and to find which star would rise during which season. And that's how they could find their way of navigating. And similarly, this is a reawakened way or method within us to be able to find our way past the stars, through our star charts tied to our life stories.
That's so incredible. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, I guess you need to really go to your website because I understand what you're saying, and it's just so intricate. And it seems like a really advanced technology and connects so many dots on how to use the cosmos to not only connect to our heritage, but to kind of see what kind of things that we are dealing with in this life and how to work through it. So I'm curious, how did your initial connection with Inner Roots Galactic Council begin, and what guidance did they give you about your mission? Did they like, how did that all start for you?
Okay, so excuse me, that was so interesting how it happened. I have to close my eyes to recollect those memories. So clearly, like many of us star beings, and as I used in the slide, right, when I said we had a really hard fall, many of us came into this world knowing that, or feeling like we didn't belong here. And so that was, of course, a recurring theme and thread that I had my entire life. But I would say main activations and channelings came around the age 25 to my mid 30s, where I began to get just creative inspiration, really. I wanted to create something called the Tea House at that time, which was to be a philosophical place where people could come and talk about the notions of their existence. Well, little did I know at the time, Neil, when I was creating this tea house, that I was doing full blown intergalactic technology. I thought I was immersing people into a story world. But what I was doing there was creating portals. I was taking PVC pipes and I was creating like, like a cube. And I was telling people, inviting them into my time machine. And I was around a lot of people still in the 3D world. And they thought I was nuts, but they're all my friends. And they just thought it was this story immersion experience, right? And then I just began to start channeling through my writings. I started to find things where I was receiving things from source, where I was understanding that tea was really truly a symbol of alchemy in the sense that it was representing all of the different elements: earth, wind, fire, water, and air. And those are all, they come in convergence with the Self Island, where all those elements conjoin, the Self Island where I took you all in higher mind. And you know what, which is so funny, the other day I looked up the 12 grid tree, right? Which they talk about. Neil, I didn't realize that all this entire mechanism was tied to the Sophia Christos template, but it just came to me through a different verbiage in the form of story and myth. And so every time I look, I can see that there are always these just like points of external validation. So that's how I can see that I am following a trail of breadcrumbs, or I'm really going down a rabbit hole in my consciousness that helps me reorient and get connected to my inner world. So it was really what Arcturus Ra was also talking about yesterday, right? And also Vinny earlier, where you're having this connection and this continuous dialogue between your inner and outer world. And because it's all you anyway. So it's like just paying attention to the different clues of in reality and seeing how you can see life as a story that you can read, and what it is that your star beings and your galactic council want you to read and what they want you to remember. And I know that, and this isn't in any way invalidating any of the other like terrific ways, that we get connected, whether it be through meditation, coming to amazing conferences like this, because honestly, Portal to Ascension is like my favorite platform. It really truly is. And my mind is always blown by the amount of information that comes, and then I always find the synchronicities between the information that came to me to what came to other speakers too. So while we do have that, that I don't want to say the accepted mechanism, right? Like for getting connected, which is through our DNA, obviously, or through energy work, or through light language and whatnot. These are all very, very powerful modalities and methods, of course, but there are other ways too to be able to connect with our star families as well. And story just happens to be one of them. And if you can read your story, your life story effectively, you will find some very profound codes that will help you navigate in your human vessel, and be in full remembrance all the time with your intergalactic history. So
Well, could
none
you
of it's
speak on that
exclusive.
more? Because
I'm
that
sorry.
was like my next question was, how do you see the role of personal stories and our experiences give us deeper galactic context? So you just mentioned that. Could you speak on that a little more?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Can you repeat it again? How do they,
Yeah,
just
how
so
do
I
you
don't
see
miss it?
our stories and lived experiences help open us up to galactic contact?
Okay. So that's actually what I am full blown doing on Inner Route slash the Cosmic Voyage Crash Course, because what has come to me is through the star charts, right? Where you are mapping your life stories and life lessons to the stars, which um, by default map to archetypes, because each constellation, if you look at it, obviously you have the story of Orion, right? You have uh, uh, Butes, right? The herdsman. You have all of these, the conventional 88 constellations that we're talking about, right? And these are only the stars that we know. Well, you're human, because what the ancients used to do is they used to just map their own stories from their cultures and associate it with the stars, and look at how they were able to build incredible monuments, right? And that's how consciousness was able to come through those portals to them. So similarly, when you can learn how to read not only the codes of your life, and learn to map them to particular stars based on your archetype, and based merely through your intuition, because it's all in you anyway. You can't go wrong with mapping a particular with an archetype. You can't, because it's your life story, and it's going to depend on how you read your life story. So how are you going to go ahead and map your life stories to the stars? Once that's how I believe, through my methodology that's come to me, that's how that consciousness or our star beings are communicating to us, is through those archetypes in the stars, as that consciousness comes through to us. And I believe, of course, that sacred sites play a huge, huge role. What I also teach is connecting households to sacred sites and the crystalline grid and ley lines for that transmission of consciousness to flow through. So on a personal level, it's really interesting that it's all about an integrative work, right, Neil? Like, because you're probably asking from a very practical level. And I remember, even Dr. Thompson, when she got us connected to our meeting, our intergalactic, one of our intergalactic forms, right? And earlier in the meditation, um, these are very, very powerful ways of visualizing that you can carry through in your daily life, right? And being able to carry that remembrance, say, oh, I associate with Arcturus, or I'm Palladian, or I'm Lyran, and such. But how you can further also deepen that connection to your star families and beings is through your own intuition. It's interesting. It's a case of the chicken or the egg. In the case that you need you to be able to use your existing level of your intuition to be able to deepen that intuition, to be able to get those messages and heighten that connection to your star families. And it's through your human vessel that I see, because you are the primary device. And you might be, it's interesting because, now that AI is here, we see it as just this really advanced form of technology in the 3D, but we are ourselves are demonstrative of being technology. We are made here in our human form, right? I'm not in any way discounting the fact that we're intergalactic first and foremost, but we are perfect systems. We're made of flesh and blood, and we have DNA in us. We have remembrance. We have a brain heart gut connection. I mean, this is all demonstrative of the fact that we are a perfect system, and that we are a perfect device. And we also have the different layers of our energy bodies. We have our spirit, we have our soul. And all of these interconnections, I believe, point to, for lack of a better word, the fact that we are a device, and that we are the interface with our star families.
Wow. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And
Thank
I
you.
would love for you for to tell, because I know that the two websites that you have, there's one website that's the best one to start out with, kind of before you go into the other one, right? So could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I know that what I presented today might be really strange to a lot of people here, because I know it fits, it's like the unconventional way, in a way, in our starseed community, right, of looking at things. So what I've done is I've channeled the Cosmic Voyage Crash Course, which is an accelerator program for both people who continue to look at life in a 3D way, and for incredible starseeds such as yourselves, who are who want to be able to map some initial concepts to be able to make sense of this technology. And it's a full-blown accelerator program that's really, really gamified. And so what you do there is I walk you through and take you, oh, and I'm sorry, I'll type it in here too if they want to see this one. Mm, Oops, yeah, double M's, but it shouldn't be. What this one here does is that it takes people and it equips them with the tools and also the understanding of the technology to really see how the ley lines work, to really get them connected to their inner child, which is the first point of expanding your inner spiritual container, to get deepen your understanding that you are a device, and then take that and get you connected to your tree of life, which is your modem, to use Wi-Fi speak. And then, which is also, the personal tree of life that is really used in a lot of spiritual circles. And then take that and get it connected to the ley lines in the crystalline grid to understand how to get your household and you connected to your portal. So it's like the Cosmic Voyage Crash Course walks you through those concepts. And the innerroots.com is the actual full-blown portal where all of this is happening. And this is where you are creating the stargates for all of this to happen. But do bear in mind, it's all in the form of a story. It's all about unlocking clues. It's about unlocking artifacts. It's about integrating. And all of this is meant to appease to your inner child, because our inner child loves to play. Our inner child loves to discover. And it's about getting back and connected to our magical inner child, because we have a lot of relearning, or actually, the better word to say is remembering to do. When we can get reconnected to our inner child, we can understand that we already have the mechanism to remember how reality is really supposed to look. And you all already have it by being here today, by listening to it. You already have that remembrance in you. This is just another way of being able to plug into it, to see how it all works by converging today's technology with what we used to do back then.